Money, finance, and investments, these are the three domains which are associated purely with numbers and logic. And in order for one to make really good financial decisions or possess a lot of money, the general consensus is that he or she needs to be very intelligent or smart or possess a degree from a very good institution. However, that is not something that Morgan Housel has found out as he brings it up in his book, The Psychology of Money. Housel mentions that becoming good with money and investments has very little to do with your education or how intelligent you are, and a lot to do with your behavior in life or the mindset that you have towards money. So there are 4 key ideas that I would like to discuss from this book, and the first of them being the difference between wealthy and rich. Though normally considered the same, there is a difference between these two, and it depends on how you treat the money that you have. Housel refers to rich as the amount of current income that you have, that is, the income that you're actively earning. Now that can be a lot of money and precisely why you're called rich, but a characteristic of rich people more often than not is they like to spend away their money on flashy stuff like an expensive car or a big house. And most of the time, that is normally to impress others or to show off to others. Wealthy people also have a big house or cars, but unlike rich people, they ensure that they have a lot of money saved up for the future in order to ensure that they have the flexibility and freedom with their time, which I'll be talking about very soon. And people often make the mistake of considering the house or the cars or the expensive watch or the expensive phone or whatever it is that is explicitly visible from the outside as being the true representation of the wealth. The actual truth is wealth represents the money that you cannot see. Wealth represents the money that is not spent, that is lying around in your bank or as investments. That is the true representation of wealth. And if you dig into the money of rich people versus wealthy people, you would normally see wealthy people have normally a lot of saved up money compared to rich people who maybe have a lot of debt or loans, and they are purely getting served by the current income that they have. As soon as you cut off that income, they will be in big trouble. Now there is nothing wrong with that, but the idea is those loans or debt that you might have, they should not be to support any unnecessary spendings that you might have. For example, an expensive phone or an expensive car or whatever that may be. The idea here is to always live below your means, because after a certain point in time, any expenditure that you make on materialistic items, it is just to show off to others or to satisfy your ego. They do not add any real value to your life. So this is something wealthy people know, and this is something that they actively avoid. The second aspect is, why should you save your money? Now Morgan here debates that when it comes to becoming wealthy, it has a lot to do with how much money you save rather than earning that 1 or 2 extra return on your investments. And investments in this case does not necessarily mean investing in equity or in mutual funds, but simply keeping your money in your savings bank account. That has a lot of importance as well. Because Morgan argues that when you want to realistically cut down your spending, that is, consciously spend on items that you truly need and save money, these are the things which are 100% in your control. But no matter how much you plan, if you want to maximize your returns from your investments, that will never be in your control. So it's better to deal with the controllables rather than obsessing over something that you cannot control. And there is also a hidden return on the money that you might say keep in your savings account. So let's say you have an amount that is equal to 12 months of your salary from your job saved up in your bank account. And now let's consider the fact that maybe you really hate your job and you want to quit your job and switch your career and try out something in a field that you love, for example photography or music or whatever it is. Having that money in your bank account gives you the flexibility and freedom to do this. You cannot put a number on this, right? What is the return on cash that is lying in your bank account that gives you the flexibility to do this? You possibly cannot quantify that flexibility of freedom that money gives you, and hence this is precisely the reason this factor is overlooked or this return is considered hidden. Now this is not to say that you keep all your money in your savings account or in a liquid mutual fund, but he makes this point to establish a new perspective towards money and not relentlessly running behind maximizing your returns from the stock market or mutual fund or wherever it is. Because wherever you keep your money, it has a cost, and you need to be aware of that cost and the opportunity that comes with it. So having a control on unnecessary spending and saving up can have a huge dividend, which is not necessarily apparent all the time. Next, and this is my favorite part, where Morgan talks about using money to buy the most limited resource that we have in our life, that is time. So in the book, there is the mention of a psychologist by the name of Angus Campbell, and he conducted a research in the early 1900s with the objective of finding out what really made people happy. And this is what he had to say. Having a strong sense of controlling one's life is a more dependable predictor of positive feelings of well-being than any of the objective conditions of life we have considered. More than anything in life, the thing that brings sustainable happiness in one's life is to do whatever you want with your time, whenever you want, with whomever you want, and for as long as you want. And in order to have that kind of flexibility and freedom, you definitely need to have ownership over your time. And we have seen this very recently. After the pandemic, most of the employees still prefer working from home or a hybrid model because they feel they have more control over their time that way instead of going and working at the office on a daily basis. But in order to get control over your time and in order to own your time, you need to develop a solid asset-based income, and that is where money would help you. Money down the line, if you utilize it in the right way at the right place, it would help you to develop a solid asset that can give you an income without you working much. I made a video regarding what an asset-based income is and why should you have one. You can check that one out here. Another point that Morgan makes is it is more realistic to be reasonable than being rational. Obviously, we are human beings, we are not robots, we have emotions, and that is something we should always acknowledge even when it comes to investing, because normally we have heard that we should be emotionless or we should function like robots when it comes to our investment. But that does not work in real life, and we should be ready to acknowledge that fact. What this means is when we obsess too much over as to how much return our investments are giving or try to optimize for the perfect investment strategy, what happens is when that investment is performing well, then it's absolutely fine. But from the time it starts performing poorly, and obviously definitely that will happen because that's the nature of equity investing, that's when we start losing it, and many even start losing their sleep over it. And obviously this causes a stress for people and they end up withdrawing their money from the investment, and this can be the worst mistake that you can make for your investments. Because one thing you should know is when it comes to investments, time is your biggest ally, and if you cannot stick with any investment strategy for a long period of time, you tend to lose out on the benefits of compounding, because compounding can give you astonishing results if you stick with it for a long period of time. Hence, just choosing a basic mutual fund like an index mutual fund and starting an SIP there and increasing that every year as your income increases, just sticking with this plan for a long duration, say 10 to 15 years, can ensure that you do very well when it comes to your investments, rather than always trying to optimize for that particular strategy and chasing behind the high returns or trying to beat the market. Because staying in the game for a long period of time is far more important than playing that game perfectly for a short duration of time. And lastly, understanding the role of luck and risk in our lives. Morgan calls luck and risk as doppelgangers, that is, clones of each other, and the impact these two factors have in our lives is very difficult to understand or estimate. Everyone is born in a different environment, in a different country, in a different generation, exposed to different ideologies, go to different educational institutions, etc., etc. And because of these factors, the impact of luck and risk in each and everyone's life is almost impossible to quantify or understand. For example, if Bill Gates was born in a different country, in a different generation, to a different set of parents, he definitely would not have turned out the way he is today. And even after he was born, there are a lot of things in his life that can be straight away considered as luck, and obviously there was risk as well. It's a combination of these two. And all these factors came to him without him doing anything. But directly and indirectly, these two factors helped him to reach where he is today. Obviously, he worked really hard to achieve what he has today, but even if he had worked hard and say he was born in India at that point instead of US, it definitely would not have gone the same way for him as it did. So we should definitely understand and acknowledge the presence of luck and risk in our lives. And when it comes to learnings in the field of finance and investments, this is what Morgan has to say. Focus less on specific individuals and case studies and more on broad patterns. The reason he says this is he mentions that, say, if you want to copy the investment success of Warren Buffett, you definitely will not be able to do that because it's not just about the investment strategy that he has followed. There are a lot of factors which have accumulated in order to give him that kind of returns from his investments. He is definitely an exception, he is definitely an outlier, and because of this reason, the probability for the presence of luck and risk in his life is quite high, and that is something which you cannot copy. And that is the reason, if you want to learn in the field of finance and investments, you should look at the general strategies or the general returns that has worked for a large number of people, because the probability of luck and risk being present in those cases is less because it has worked for a lot more number of people rather than just 1 or 2%. So it's easy to replicate that. You should definitely give this book a read because all of us need and have money, and knowing how to manage that money is an absolutely necessary life skill that we should all have and we should all know about, especially because it's not taught anywhere. I'll provide a link to the book in the description below so that you can check it out. So that was it for this video, and until the next one, take care, see you, and bye-bye.